Hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Tea and Overtones. And today we're going to be brewing a cup of Cyprus smoked wild leaf. It's a black tea. It's from Song Tea and Ceramics, which is a company in San Francisco who are very, very fussy about their teas. Their teas are really excellent. It's worth visiting their website for the elegance. They select very, very few teas. Some purveyors of teas, you just see hundreds of teas, but those are all very hand-selected and their teas sell out pretty quickly. In fact, I can't even find this again when I went to look it up. So a very special tea in that it is smoked. I call it a black tea, but actually they call it a red tea. And I think we've talked about this, that it's called a red tea for a good reason. I mean, it is a black tea, but when you see the color of it, it's a red amber color. So in China, these are usually known as red teas. Smoked, very, very unusual. We'll talk about that in a moment. What's smoked mean? And of course, today I want to again approach the idea of how everything is tea. Everything is tea. That sounds kind of somewhat of an absurd comment, but we'll talk about it. But I want to get this tea brewing because it's going to be very, very hot. Now, usually a black tea or a red tea is usually brewed with boiling water or very close to boiling water. In this case, 208 degrees. I think boiling water is 212 degrees. So it gets very precise on their instructions. Their instructions are very clear. 4 grams, which I have weighed out here, 150 milligrams and 208 degree temperature, and to brew for 1 minute. Now, if you're like me, what does 150 milligrams mean? Well, I have this lovely silicone measuring cup, which I find invaluable. And so I just put the water at 150 milligrams. What does that mean? I can look around, that's 5 ounces. Of course, I could go online and easily convert it, but that's 5 ounces. And what does 5 ounces mean? Well, this is why I love my cup here, my teapot, my glass teapot, because I can see exactly where I need to pour to be 150 milligrams. Why? Simply because I filled this with the water. I poured the water in. I saw where 150 milligrams went. I now know where that level is, and now I can pour the tea with confidence. All very exacting, very different from our peak tea experience, the company Peak Tea, P-I-Q-U-E, where we just poured a packet of tea crystals and brewed it. This is an art in itself, where the temperature, the amount of tea, the steeping time, all are very, very important aspects. And of course, I could extend the steeping time beyond a minute, and I would get a different kind of flavor profile, or by steeping it for a minute, I get a lighter, kind of sweeter tea. So it's all a question of preference and what works best in terms of what you want out of your tea. Now, it's just brewing, it won't take a second, but I want to let it cool while I'm talking to you. And just to say that, just to read on the back, this is a high elevation, wild-picked rendition of a traditional Chinese smoked tea, picked in spring of 2011, dried over Cyprus fire and aged for 6 years. The result is bright, sweet, and effervescent. Notes of plum, dried jujube and applewood. So obviously they're into their teas. Oops, I keep hitting that cup. This is not the consciousness of tea. I really need to be a bit more careful. It's not exactly what I'm going to be talking about. So let's just get this tea out of the teapot. Again, we want to make sure the water is out of the tea. Getting all those drops in so that the tea is not stewing in the hot water. So this allows me to have some more steeps. By the way, I really was amiss. The aroma here is extraordinary. You really get that smoked. feeling. Not everybody likes this, by the way. I have tried this with some people, and not everybody likes this tea, but I love it. I love the smokeness. There is another smoked tea called Lapsang Souchong, which is more popular. You'll find that readily available. The big difference between the two is that with the Lapsang Souchong, they complete the making of the tea, and then they smoke it. They put it over smoke, whatever they do to smoke it. They kind of saturate the tea leaves in smoke from a scented wood. And so really the idea is to smoke the tea to give the tea a smoked flavor. With this tea, it was actually dried over the cypress in the process of making it. So it's more authentic and much more designed to have the balance of smoke and flavor intertwined. So a very special tea indeed, and I really have enjoyed it, but I haven't tasted it in quite a while, maybe almost a year, so I'm looking forward to how it comes across. Already, of course, I love the aroma of smoked. But let's talk a little bit about this idea that everything is tea. Now, what could I possibly mean by that? I visited Japan several times, and of course I loved the tea ceremony. It's a gorgeous choreographed piece of work, really, where every movement is significant. And it can last a long time. And it takes a little bit of patience. And if you're sitting on the floor in seiza position, which is with your legs tucked under you or cross-legged, it can actually be quite demanding on the tatami mat. So I quite didn't have the patience to learn it. I took a couple of tea lessons in Los Angeles, and then my good friend Steve Bimel, who has been learning tea for years at a tea temple in Kyoto, has been trying to teach me certain aspects of it, but I really haven't quite had the patience to really dive in. But I love the consciousness of it. That's the thing. And I want to convey that to you a little bit, because when I was in Japan, I thought I love the consciousness, meaning that all the gestures meant something. That when we pick it up, that I'm really caring about that moment, that pausing, that leaning back we've talked about, the yutori, giving a little bit of space, the maotoru, moving through that space. Really, really lovely. Still a bit too hot to drink, but just to really appreciate the aroma. All of this is just very important in the caring. I mean, even then, because I'm talking to you, I put it down carelessly. And so that's not quite the consciousness of tea. What can I bring into my life where everything becomes tea? In other words, I do everything with a caring and a consciousness. And I really began to think about this a lot. And I've tried to bring that idea into the tea that we're drinking here, and into these kind of little moments that we're having together, that we can take a moment to pause, lean back, appreciate space, appreciate life, be grateful. Because to me, tea and gratitude go together. Have that moment of gratitude and enjoy the moment and take it in. And to have beautiful things around us. I mean, again, I have the beautiful little pot of wild flowers, and just flowers that are growing in our backyard. It's springtime or early summer, so there's some beautiful blossoms. And to appreciate that and to really take a moment to take that in. So I started wondering, how could I bring this into my daily life? And the first thing I thought of is that I could actually open the door of the car for my wife. This is what I was thinking about this in Japan, so that it becomes a tea moment. My wife is getting into the car, instead of just going around and just flicking the car open for her, just to come in, open the door for her gently and really honor. And not only my wife, whoever I am driving at that particular time, and just to open the door for them. And it's this beautiful gesture that actually is very appreciated by the person, but also puts me in a different space. I'm no longer rushing to get into the car. I'm actually welcoming a guest into my car, that consciousness of making tea for them. So that was the one. The other thing, I thought of the movie Big Night. If you haven't seen it, it's worth seeing. It's probably about 15 to 20 years old at this time. It was with Stanley Tucci and Tony Shalhoub. And the end scene is the one that really got to me, because they're in their kitchen of their restaurant. It's a movie about food, a really wonderful movie. And the waiter is there. I think his name, goodness, it was on the tip of my lips. Mark Antony, thank you. Mark Antony, I'm saying thank you to myself. Mark Antony is the actor who's a well-known Latino singer. He was the waiter in that movie. And Stanley Tucci decides to make an omelet. And the camera is kind of fixed as I remember it. It's a one-shot take. And he takes all of the implements, and he starts making an omelet, a simple omelet. I think it was like a 2-egg omelet. And your mouth is watering by the end of that scene. The way he's whipping it, the way he's using the implements together. And I thought, that is the tea ceremony. That is exactly it. Taking a simple thing like making an omelet and making it into an art. And it was all being done very, very naturally. They were in their kitchen. It was just making an omelet. I mean, it was nothing he was not doing it for show. But everything was being done so beautifully that those are one of the scenes from a movie that stays in my mind to this day. It's like how we can make the simplest of things into an art. And that's when I say everything is tea. And by that I mean we do things with that idea. How can I make this into an art? How can I make this beautiful? And that's why I love the ceramics. I love the moment to pause. I love the appreciation, the moment of gratitude, the moment to sip. It is really light and delectable. A slight sweetness to it, and not what you would normally feel like you were getting from a regular black tea or red tea. A lot of dimension to it. And of course, I do love the smoked aspect of it. So that's something I'm really going to take my time over to enjoy. But I hope whatever you're doing in your life, that you'll take the time to enjoy it, to make the ordinary into an art, to make this moment sacred. And that to me is what underlies it. When we give our full attention to something, when everything becomes tea, when this moment becomes the most precious moment there is, then we are really living. Berush Beshan.